Now that we're in the groove, we have a big opportunity to make big changes. And then the last 10 nights is where we wrap up this month with a beautiful bow. And we say this is the completion of this effort. The first of these big habits that we want to change in these middle 10 nights is the habit of complaining. Raise your hand if you know a complainer in your life. Anybody? Everyone's doing this and they're looking around. They're trying to find the complainer, right? Or they're trying to make sure they're not there, right? Raise your hand if you complain. Anybody here complain? I'm happy you're honest. May Allah bless you for your honesty, but stop complaining. You know, complaining, subhanAllah, it's interesting. Complaining is a very normal human behavior. Today in the khutbah, we talked about the dua of the Prophet ﷺ at Ta'if. And the translation of it is him, he's complaining. He's complaining, but he's complaining in a way that makes it prophetic and not destructive. It's constructive complaining. We'll talk about how he did that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we're fasting the month of Ramadan, we have this phrase that we use. Have you guys ever heard the term hangry? That a person gets hangry. So because you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're a little bit more easily irritated. And as a result of that, you can snap a little bit quicker, or you complain about things that normally don't bother you. And it takes an honest person to be able to look in the mirror and realize that, you know what, this behavior is actually not good. Even though I'm fasting, this behavior of me complaining is not good. So let's ask ourselves some questions, right? In these middle 10 nights, do we find ourselves being more irritated by things? Do we find ourselves snapping, right? Parents, do you find yourself snapping at your kids? Do you find yourself, kids, I'm not going to ask you because you're like, yes, call protective services, right? No, do you find yourself snapping at your kids or your spouse or your friends? Do you find that your tone is a lot less merciful? Do you, instead of taking ownership, do you start to point fingers and blame others? Which is another version of complaining, right? So for example, if you're planning something and it doesn't work out or it falls apart or whatever, there's an issue that happens. Is it someone else's fault? Is it your fault? Right? It's easy to point the finger at somebody else. And at the end of all of this, when we have this bad character of complaining, do we use the excuse, I'm fasting. That's why I'm like this. I'm fasting. You know, subhanAllah, fasting is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should never ever use the gift as a reason for our bad behavior. We should never do that. It's to the point where even amongst like our coworkers, colleagues, people that are not Muslim, they should not, you know, it's so actually, it was so damaging. One time, I was with a group of people that were in my master's class. They were not Muslim, and Ramadan had come, and I was fasting. And one girl said, "Oh yeah, I have a friend. She's Muslim. She fasts, and she always tells me like, don't talk to me. I'm in a bad mood." And I said, "Man, I understand what that girl was doing, and sometimes yes, you can have those honest conversations like in the family." But as a matter of da'wah, as a matter of giving an impression about Islam, why would you ever tell someone that obeying Allah puts you in a bad mood? It's just not this. It's not the right thing to do. If your heart is struggling with that, okay, you're human, I'm human, I get it. But nobody should ever be like, oh, I gotta pray Fajr. Oh, I have to fast. Oh, it's making me so. What does that feel like to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You know, Allah's example is greater than ours. He doesn't feel the same way that we feel. But how would you feel? How would you feel if you asked somebody to do something and they said yes, but then they made you feel bad the whole time? Can you give me a ride? Yeah, I'll give you a ride. It's out of my way. I don't have any gas. All right, it's really cold. I'm tired. I want to go home. Where are you going? To the airport? Oh, God. Get in. At that point, you're like, oh, I'm going to walk. I'd rather call an Uber. The guy might be a serial killer, but it'll be less uncomfortable, right? Than this ride, right now. This is not how the Prophet ﷺ taught us, right? This is not how he taught us. When we say, for example, that we are doing something for the sake of Allah, we cannot be a group of people that complain. We have to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have that opportunity. And I'll share with you, right? There are people that are in this room. There are people that are in this room that medically, for whatever reason, either temporarily or chronically, they're unable to fast. I have friends, and a lot of times we might associate this with people that are elderly, or maybe expecting mothers or nursing mothers, but I have friends that are my age that because of their condition, they can't fast. And they used to be able to fast, but something changed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the way that their body is, they're not able to do it anymore. And wallahi, they look at people who are fasting with such yearning, such longing. You know, subhanAllah, even prayer. Think about prayer. Tarawih prayer. Where people stand and they pray, subhanAllah. I remember a few years ago, when I tore my ACL and I got surgery, it was right before Ramadan, or it was leading to Ramadan, and I had the knee brace on. I couldn't make sajda. I couldn't go into sujood. I was praying in a chair. And again, some people, that's the condition that they have. Whether it's temporary or chronic or permanent, they have to pray in the chair because they're not able to make sujood in the way that normally they used to. And wallahi, I remember this thought that I had when it was time to make sajda, and the entire congregation went down into sujood. And I sat down and I said, man, Allah, please, give me my health back. I'll never ever skip a salah again. I'll never be late again. Because you miss it. You miss it. So the first thing that I want us all to think about these middle 10 nights, how can I stop complaining? How can I stop complaining? The Prophet ﷺ, he taught us a very important lesson. He said, Man samata naja. Whoever is quiet, they're saved. And my mother used to tell us this. My mom would always say to us, if you have to complain, first ask yourself, can you just remain quiet? من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Say good or just be quiet. And by the way, being quiet is not weakness. Being quiet is not conceding. You're not being defeated. In fact, you are winning. You're being victorious. You are the conqueror of your nafs. When your nafs wants to complain and your heart says no, I will not complain. My wife, her grandfather, her nana, Allah yarhamhu, he passed away a few years ago. He had this beautiful line that I always will remember. He was a very happy guy, and his wife was in a very bad mood all the time. So my wife's grandfather, always jolly. Wife's grandmother, the opposite. Interesting marriage. All right. Third party. I don't understand Bangla. All right. My wife's Bangladeshi, but I could tell that there was a lot of disagreement about things. So one time, apparently, she asked him. She said, "Why are you so happy all the time? Why are you so happy all the time? Bad things are happening. This." And he said something so profound. He's not a scholar. He's not a but he's just a good heart. SubhanAllah, close to Allah. And he said, Allah is so kind, Allah is so generous, that if I spent the entire day just thanking Allah, I would actually run out of time before I could switch over to the bad list. Like I wouldn't have time. If I had to thank Allah over and over about things, new things, different things, I would actually run out of time, fall asleep before I had time to go to my complaints. Okay? Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that you can't open your hands and make dua and complain to Allah. You can, you should. Because that's the whole purpose of dua, is to petition Allah, to complain to Allah. But do not let your complaining leave the domain of dua. Don't go complain to other people. Right? We oftentimes complain kind of laterally instead of to the divine. Complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. Complain to Him alone. So, how do we do this? Instead of saying, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm thirsty, you say what? Alhamdulillah. Replace it with Alhamdulillah. Instead of saying, when people come up to you in Ramadan, in the middle of the Taraweeh, they say, how are you doing? This is my biggest pet peeve. You want to know my biggest pet peeve? Yes or no? I'm not going to tell you. You don't just deserve my biggest pet peeve. You have to tell me if you want it. My biggest pet peeve is in Ramadan when somebody goes, how are you? How's it going? How's your Ramadan? And the person goes, I'm hanging in there. We're all hanging in there. Shut your mouth, man. We are all collectively hanging in there, okay? No one needs you to restate that this is difficult. We get it. It's fasting. We understand. You're not unique in your difficulty, okay? Enough of this. Instead of saying that, just say, Alhamdulillah. This is worship, right? Alhamdulillah. This is worship, alhamdulillah. When irritated, the Prophet ﷺ taught us to say, Allahumma inni sa'im. When you're in a bad mood, say, Oh Allah, I'm fasting. Oh Allah, I'm fasting. You know what's interesting? It actually works. Sometimes we read this hadith as sort of like a little bit of a sarcastic tongue-in-cheek. No, try saying it. Allahumma inni sa'im. Oh Allah, I'm fasting. Oh Allah, I'm fasting. You will see that by affirming that state, it will repair whatever it is that you are feeling. And for families, make it a house rule. No complaining Ramadan. Challenge each other. Right? Kids, challenge your parents. I'm giving you permission, okay? Your parents complain, you're like, it's Ramadan, don't complain. If kids are complaining, parents, look at your kids, and you can't complain, it's Ramadan. Right? It's Ramadan, you can't complain. Make it a family rule. Another advice that my teachers gave is anger versus self-control. Being angry or being, getting irritated, being angry versus being able to control yourself. Some of my teachers also said that this also means that when you find yourself in a state of irritation, when you find yourself in a state of frustration, that how do you respond to this? Do you indulge? And do you start doing things that you regret? Start texting like crazy? You guys know when the 3 dots appear in iMessage? And 30 seconds go by and there's no message yet? That means you're in trouble. Okay, let me just give you that. It means you're in trouble. So, do we indulge that part of our nafs where when we're angry or upset, now we feel like it's time for me to explode. It's time for me to just, like a grenade. Or do I have the ability to control myself? One of the things that Shaykh Abdul Nasser told me that I think is very profound is he said, very, very rarely in life has anyone ever regretted being silent. Like, if you looked at every regret in your life, it's usually that the regrets are tied to saying something. But usually, if a person's quiet, they don't regret much. There might be that one time out of like 10,000 instances where the person says, I wish I said something. Okay, but you know what? The probability is in your favor. If you remain quiet, you will almost always feel glad that you did when you are angry. And what happens, subhanAllah? When you're angry, you're tempted to say things and do things that are really not representative of who you are. Imam Ghazali actually says this. Imam Ghazali says that anger is a type of intoxication, like drinking alcohol, where a person becomes drunk. Anger can do the same thing. Anger can make a person act differently than they normally act, say things that they never say, do things that they never do, and even think things that they normally don't think. All because of what? Because of anger. So, Imam Ghazali, he says, your job when you're angry is to completely and totally stifle that anger. Don't act on it. Don't say anything. Don't behave in a way that's angry. Why? Because you will immediately regret what you have done. This is why when the man came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, give me advice, Ya Rasulullah, please. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't become angry, which meant don't become overwhelmed by your anger. And then he asked again, Ya Rasulullah, any other advice? Don't become angry. You repeat it. Control your anger, because that is the beginning of the path of destruction. This month of Ramadan is a special month, and nobody likes fighting in this month. If you get into a fight with somebody in the month of Ramadan, it's a really, really deflating situation. Like if you're fighting with your spouse, or your friends, or your kids, or your parents, it's not a good feeling. It's almost always based in the inability to control one's anger. And so how do we control our anger in this month of Ramadan? Well, the Prophet ﷺ gave us practical advice. If you're angry, sit down. Don't move. Don't do anything. Just take a moment. Give yourself some space. Reset. If you're angry while sitting, lay down. Take a nap if you have to. Close your eyes. Just give yourself 5 minutes. The lesson from the hadith about how to handle anger is you need to be able to remove yourself from the situation. You have to be able to do that. If you're unable to do that, you're going to trip over yourself. You're going to actually cause damage. Another prophetic advice is to make wudu, to take water. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, because why? Water extinguishes fire. And anger is like a fire from shaitan. So when you make wudu and you actually splash yourself with water, on your arms and hands, your face, everything, right? It actually does cool you down, physically, but also spiritually. It kind of cools you down a little bit. Another is walk away. Remove yourself from the scenario. The Prophet ﷺ did this when he was offended, when he was hurt, when he was bothered by something. He would be silent and he would turn away. And sometimes he would even walk away to protect the situation. And lastly, do not send text messages when you're angry. Do not. Because it's just going to lead to more pain. And what's worse than a text message is a text message that you then unsend. Because iMessage says you unsent it. And then the person says, what did you say? And you're like, nothing. And they said, I have an old iPad, I haven't updated it yet. I'm gonna go check. Right? And then you're definitely done. Right? You're cooked, as they say. So, control your anger. Remember this. The experience that we have in Ramadan, especially for parents, the experience that we give our kids in Ramadan is so integrally tied to how we behave. If Ramadan brings about a state of tranquility and peace and sakina in the home, that is what the home in Ramadan will be remembered for, and the kids will remember that. But if Ramadan becomes the catalyst for anger and disappointment and frustration and all of those things that we don't want, then that is going to be the memory that our kids have. You know, our generation of parents, me and you, talking to the parents really quickly, we have these like really intense WhatsApp debates and online discourses about how can we defeat Christmas. It's like a thing, right? Like, what do we do? Do we buy an Eid tree? Do we do like Eid jingle bells? Like, what do we do? Like, how can we defeat Christmas? You know what everyone says about Christmas, right? They say what? It's just so nice. It's so festive. Everyone's happy. Think about Ramadan. Think about as you're screaming at your family to get out of the house. Come on, we're gonna be late. There's no parking. We're on the back. You know. How is that festive? The whole house smells like oil, right? People are trying to find their shoes. People are screaming at each other. Everyone's upset. That's not, and then the car ride is quiet. It's so, you can hear the turn signal. It's so loud, right? Because everyone's mind is just like so tense. That's not how that works. You want to defeat Christmas in the minds of our youth? Then you cannot make Ramadan and Eid into a battlefield, right? They're going to run away. They're going to desert the battle. You have to make it something that's enticing, that's fun, that's memorable. Okay? If you miss the first 2 rak'ah of Tarawih, guess what? It's okay. It's okay. You can, it's Tarawih, right? You can make it up. Okay? But it's not worth causing damage to the experience of your family because you have a mild crash out over parking lots. We need to make sure that we prioritize. I'm being 100% serious. We need to check ourselves as parents. We cannot normalize the tension and anxiety surrounding the month of Ramadan. It's not worth it. Nobody wants to be anxious. And if you display anxiety all the time, people are going to say, what's making her anxious? What's making him anxious? It's Ramadan and the associations there. May Allah forgive us. Right? May Allah Ta'ala forgive us. By the way, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he instructed us not to run to prayer, part of the qiyas of that is don't rush. Don't rush. If you're late, you're late. It is what it is. Tomorrow, just leave earlier. Strategize, right? Change something up in your plan. But don't try to fix a bad plan by ruining the experience. You're late, you're late. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't run. Don't run to prayer, which means what? Don't scream, don't speed, don't park in a crazy way. All of that is the same. Qiyasan is the same as running. Okay? We ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us. Okay? And then the last advice that I'll give, and then we'll do some Q&A inshallah, is laziness versus consistency. This middle part of Ramadan is the beginning of Ramadan laziness. So first 10 nights, a lot of energy. Last 10 nights, resurgence. Middle 10 nights is the Ramadan laziness kind of sets in a little bit. Okay? So whereas there was a lot of himmah and a lot of drive to do the right thing, this is now where we struggle. Now what's the opposite of laziness is being consistent. Being consistent in your actions and in your deeds. One of the troubling things about Ramadan that I've really noticed this year is that we are entering into the Ramadan of hyper-predictive Ramadans. Everyone has a Ramadan planner, a Ramadan checklist. You have like a Ramadan AI bot, like telling you, right? You subscribe to Claude to tell you how you can make your Ramadan efficient. And everyone's trying to finish their Quran and watch Sheikh Omar Sulaiman series and do everything perfectly. But Ramadan was never about quantity, it's about quality. It was never about numbers. It was about depth. 8 versus 20. This versus that. That was never a conversation that you saw amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and even the great scholars to follow. Yes, they discussed legal questions, but they didn't discuss successful Ramadan in those terms. The Prophet ﷺ said, 2 things will give you a successful Ramadan. You guys know what they are? He said, there's 2 verbs that he used. Man sama Ramadan, wa man qama Ramadan. Imanan wa ihtisaban. Ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan, in another narration, whoever stands in the month of Ramadan, Allah will forgive them of everything that they brought to the table from their sins. Everything. Do you notice something? He did not say anything about how many khatams of Quran you did. He did not say anything about how many rakats you prayed. He did not say anything about what saf in the masjid you stood in. It was just about your effort. It had nothing to do with the quantity or the quantification of your effort. It was just the quality of it. The question that he's asking, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is, did you care? Were you thoughtful? Were you intentional? Are you fasting just as a matter of habit, or are you really thinking about fasting as sacrifice and commitment? Are you standing and praying as a matter of just habit, or are you standing and praying because you are devoting yourself to Allah, even for 20 minutes, even for 10 minutes? There is a world, by the way, where somebody prays 2 rakats, 4 rakats, with full focus. And they do better than somebody that stood there on autopilot for 20 or 8 rakats. There's a world where that's possible. I'm not trying to justify either one, but I'm saying the quality is always what differentiated to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's why there was a man who prayed and the Prophet ﷺ sent him down. Go back and pray, you didn't pray. Go back and pray, you didn't pray. So instead of thinking about how much you can do this Ramadan, instead of thinking about what you can do this Ramadan, think about why you're doing what you're doing this Ramadan. Why am I doing this? You're fasting because why? My son, subhanAllah, I shared this earlier. He said he's fasting because, he said taqwa. I said, okay, what does taqwa mean? And he said, it means being patient with the things that you want and the things that you don't want. And like I shared earlier, this boy lives in the kitchen, in the pantry. Like, I'm still shocked. I'm still shocked. The first day I checked the cameras in the house, I was like, he definitely ate. And he's like, no, I fasted. I said, no, boy, you definitely ate. Let me smell your breath. You know? Because it's about what? Fasting is about the ability to control yourself. It's impulse control. I even tested him. I was like, hey, why don't you just eat something when I'm not watching? And he just kept saying, he's like, because Allah told me not to. Allah told me not to. Do you see? When a 9-year-old kid can figure this out, but then when you're 29 or 39 or 49 years old, and you're struggling to understand what it means to know why you're fasting, sometimes it's because you've been distracted. Your Ramadan planner is very nice, but it's distracting. Your obsession with finishing this or doing that or watching this, or I have to watch this series and read this book and do this and this and this, it's distracting you from the real point of the month, which is, why are you doing what you're doing? It's not about what, it's about why. Ramadan is meant to be a mirror of your intention, your sincerity. Would you do this for anyone else but Allah? And the answer is no. So, when we talk about laziness versus consistency, the reason why we become lazy is because we've forgotten the why. Right? Laziness creeps in when we become tired. We're tired. I'm tired. I don't want to read today. I don't want to do this today. Well, that's because you're reading for a different reason than the one you should be reading. Right? Reading Quran for the sake of a good reason trying to find some guidance, trying to take some lessons. It's different than the one who is just reading to finish the Quran. The one who's reading to finish the Quran, they're always feeling like, what? Oh, I have to read, I gotta read today, I gotta read my juz today, I gotta read my juz today. But the one who's reading to actually find something in the passage that they're reading, they're like, I can't wait. I can't wait. The one who's praying because prayer gives them rest is different than the one who's praying because they have to finish their prayer. The Prophet ﷺ used to say, "Arihna biha ya Bilal." Give us rest with it, ya Bilal. So the last advice in these middle 10 nights, and this is, by the way, the perfect preparation for the last 10 nights, is think about why you do what you do this month. If no one were around you, if no one was watching, would you do the things that you're doing in Ramadan, or would you start to fall off into the disease of laziness? If you would, reset your intention. Reset why you're doing it and be consistent. Don't overburden yourself. Don't take on too much. Do something that you know you can accomplish. And wallahi, 30 days of doing something that's moderate. That's moderate. It's in the middle. It's not a lot, but it's not a little. It's moderate. 30 days and 30 nights of successfully completing that is a reason to celebrate on Eid al-Fitr. But the person who goes like this the whole month, because they carry way too much and they can't do it, and then they dip, and then they do this, and then by the end of the month they say, I'm a failure. I didn't finish my khatam. I didn't pray Tarawih every night, 20 rak'at. I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do that. Yeah, because you set yourself up for that. Don't set yourself up for failure this month. Set yourself up for a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be consistent with Him. And don't do things just because everyone else is doing it. Don't compare yourself with others. Be consistent with what you know you can handle. You can hold each other accountable, but don't compare. Okay? We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us tawfiq. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us beautiful moments these middle 10 nights. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to make the first 20 nights of this month the preparation for the last 10. And in that last 10, we ask you, O Allah, to let us find the qadr in which we will be seeking from you and asking dua from you and asking for you to grant us everything that we need in this life and the next, inshallah. We can do some Q&A, inshallah.
I will open it up for a few questions, inshallah. If we have some questions, maybe there is no point.
No. It's just a small reminder. It wasn't meant to be a big lecture. It's also late, so I'm not trying to take up too much time. I know there's like a support for going on somewhere that everyone can't go to. So. Yeah, we have some questions? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
The question was, can you expand on how to have constructive complaining?
Yes. So, the Prophet ﷺ, there's two kinds of complaining. There's constructive complaining and then there's destructive complaining. So, constructive complaining, those kids are about to have a great time, mashallah. They're about to have listening. The kid opened the door and goes, come on, let's go. That's like a horrific. They found a box of Doritos somewhere. That is like a core meshing memory. You know what's funny, subhanAllah? Like, people get upset at that, but like, look, that's the type of energy that you want. Like, you don't want them to be destructive and break things, but you want them to think of the house of Allah as a place that they love seeing their friends and having a good time. Within reason, we need to make sure that there's adab. I understand, I get all that. I'm not like a Willy Wonka imam. Just like, come on, no. And there needs to be adab for that. But that's beautiful, right? Like my son, we threaten him by saying, you can't go to Tarawih tonight. He's like, no, please. And we're like, okay, well, you have to do this, you have to do it. He goes, okay, he does it. Because his friends are there, they have a good time. 95% of the time they're following the rules. 5% they're looking in stores for snacks. Right? They're looking for something that someone didn't eat at a thought. And that's the energy you want, right?
That's part of defeating that Christmas that you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like my son, yeah, exactly. Like that was beautiful, mashallah. Like calling for, come on, let's go. As long as I'm not gonna break something, but inshallah, we'll fundraise for it, we'll fix it. Everything's replaceable. So about constructive complaining, is that okay? So the Prophet, ﷺ, the way that he would complain is different than how we complain. And you can tell that by asking one question. When somebody's complaining to you or you're complaining to somebody, do you become frustrated when they provide you solutions? So if I'm complaining to him, man, I can't stand it, da, 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 da. And he's like, oh, have you thought of this? I'm like, yeah, whatever. That is an example that you're not actually complaining for any constructive reason. Like you're not trying to build a solution. There's just an element of venting. I'm just upset, and I want people to know I'm upset, and I want people to be upset with me, or to be upset that I'm upset. Versus the Prophet ﷺ, where he directed all of his complaints in one of two ways. Number one was to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost. So he would beseech Allah, and he would talk to Allah about what he was upset about. Which, by the way, is the right thing to do. You're not human if you don't hurt. You're not human if you don't complain. No one here should be like, oh, I never complain. No, you should complain. Because Allah Ta'ala wants you to open up to Him about things that aren't going right. That's okay. So number one is to Allah. Number two is in the form of what we call shura, mashwara, or seeking nasiha. That's another kind of, it's okay. Because you're actually speaking to people that are qualified to help you, that can fix the situation, that can give you guidance about how to change whatever it is that's bothering you. So if I'm not complaining to Allah, and I'm not complaining to fix the situation, then I'm being destructive. And that destructive complaining, it just brings everybody down. It brings everybody down. Right? It's almost tantamount to الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. Shaitan, the one who whispers in the chests of people. Because there's no substance. If I'm just complaining about things, all it's going to do is open up doors for backbiting, for slander, for gossip, for bad feelings, bad energy. It's not good. But if I'm seeking nasiha from somebody, it changes everything, by the way. When I say, hey, you know what? I'm really upset about something. Do you mind? Can I just tell you and then you give me some feedback? Changes the whole conversation. Changes the whole conversation. Because I am a recovering complainer. Like, I'm a hater. I'm a Muslim first, I'm a hater second. Okay? And I used to be the person who's, oh, come on, this, whatever. And I realized when you begin your conversation by saying, I have some things that are really bothering me, can you give me some perspective on it? And then you start sharing, the whole framing of that conversation is now so helpful. It changes everything. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ in the Dua al-5, he did that. He opened up to Allah, and then he said, as long as you're not upset with me, Allah, I'm okay. As long as you're not upset with me. As long as this is not you being angry with me, فَلَا أُبَالِي. I'm okay, I'm content. I'm okay with it, Allah. So that's the magic of being able to complain in the right way. Wallahu a'lam. Jazakallahu khair.
So I have a follow-up on that.
Yes, sure.
So, I mean, subhanAllah, you touched on venting a little bit.
Mm.
A lot of times we just want to vent, right? Quite literally to kind of let some steam out, right?
Yeah.
But we're not necessarily looking for solutions. So how is that comparable with that constructive criticism? Or sorry, constructive complaining? Is this kind of like a grade under that, or is it okay to do?
It just depends on what you're looking for. If you're trying just to kind of like get it out, and you know that you're not trying to talk badly about somebody, you're not trying to, that's not your goal. You just want to like give it to, and sometimes you can like be like, hey, am I crazy? And kind of like frame it that way, where you're not looking for like the grand solution, but you're just trying to make sure like, is it normal that this is bothering me? Like what's going on? You know what I mean? That's okay. That's okay. Because that's part of the purpose of brotherhood and sisterhood. It's that like it's supposed to be a mirror for each other. So when you complain to somebody, they can actually tell you and check you like, hey, you're being kind of ridiculous actually. Or they can say, yeah, that's really frustrating. And subhanAllah, when they say that, it's okay. It makes you feel like, you know what, okay, I'm not miserable. Like this is actually a real problem, and I just have to be patient, right? So yes, there is a level where you have to make sure that you don't slip into being like damaging and being toxic and saying things. As long as you keep it kosher, right? As long as you keep it fair, inshallah, non-Zionist kosher. As long as you keep it fair, inshallah, then you should be okay. Wallahu a'lam.
So you were talking about like basically making Ramadan about like caring about your intentions and having that connection with Allah, specifically when it comes to like setting goals. But how do we stop ourselves? Or like, where do you draw the line between is kind of like my best, and like this is what I'm calling my best, and I'm like selling myself short a little bit and pushing beyond what I'm comfortable.
Yeah, sure, good, very good question. So the question is like, how do I know what my best is in Ramadan, and how do I settle versus how do I keep pushing? So actually, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody about this a couple weeks before Ramadan. There's an educational theorist. His name was Vygotsky, and he actually coined this term called the zone of proximal development. And basically, in short, what he theorized was that every single person has this zone that if they really try hard, they can get there. So there's like the zone of comfort. But then beyond that, that's where you can develop if you push. How do you know where that zone is? You have to know your baseline. So an example for the questioner, for the brother who asked the question is, what have I done for the last 3 nights? Okay, I prayed Isha and I prayed, let's say 2 rak'at of Tarawih, and then I just kind of tap out. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm going to go home. After 3 nights, can you say, okay, you know what? Tonight I'm going to try for 4. Tonight I'm going to try for 4, right? Or for the first 20 days of Ramadan, you didn't pray, besides the Tarawih and the Isha prayer, you didn't pray anything in the masjid. Last 10 nights, you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to make Fajr in the masjid. It's about setting your baseline and then pushing past that, right? So if you lift weights, it's the same thing. You know what you can do 8 times, 10 times, right? But that's not your max. Your max is like, okay, let me try a little, let me see what I can add to this and get. If I can get it up twice, that's good. That's a sign that I'm improving, right? You'll never know how you're improving if you don't push yourself a little bit. But you can't push yourself every day. That's how you know that it's a problem. If you push yourself every day, we're going back into that loop again of failure. So you have to set your baseline. What am I expecting myself to do comfortably? What can I achieve comfortably? And then after 1 day, 2 days, even 3 days of doing that comfortably, now it's time for me to try to raise that standard. Inshallah. Wallahu a'lam. Good question.
Take a few more questions, inshallah.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a question that was sent by somebody here. She said, I went to a Qiyam last week that actually stressed quantity over quality. Like to not stress about feeling the effects or sweetness of our ibadah, and just to continuously increase it until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may or may not grant it to us. How can we reconcile these two concepts and increase our quality?
I'm right, they're wrong. I'm joking.
Sounds definitely not.
Yeah. So I think if I'm going to be, I don't know the person, but if I'm going to be, so the question, sorry. So the question, there's a sister in the back of it. So the question is that this person went to another qiyam where the person actually stressed the opposite. Do quantity, don't worry about feeling something, but by the way, we have to define terms here. Quantity over quality. Eventually, if you do enough quantity, then Allah will open up your heart to it, and that's what you should be focusing on, is do as much as you can until Allah opens that. So I don't think there's actually a discrepancy here in the way that you're framing it. I'll try to help. So we don't worship only because we feel like worshiping. We don't do that. Oh, I feel like praying today, I'm going to pray. Today I'm not going to. No. You pray regardless of how you're feeling, right? And in fact, sometimes when you pray and you don't feel like praying, that is the most sincere form of prayer. Because you enjoy that, right? Or you don't enjoy it, but you're doing it because Allah told you to. Like, for example, I always tell people, like, I don't like playing with Barbie dolls. But when my daughter asks me to play with her, I love playing with her Barbie dolls. Does that make sense? Even though I don't internally like it. But because my daughter, who I love, is asking me to join her, now it becomes my most favorite activity. So, because I sincerely love her, right? I don't like washing the dishes, but when my wife, who's really exhausted, or says, hey, can you just please, the sink is piled up, can you just take care of it? I love doing it. Why? Because the person I love asked me to do it.
You just put us all in bed.
I know, I'm really sorry, brothers. So, I buy a dishwasher, and then I put it in there. No, meaning if somebody I love is requesting something, that no matter how much I hate it, right? I don't like waking up at 3 in the morning, going to Walgreens and getting Tylenol. But for my son who has a fever, I love doing that. I have to do that, right? It's a completely... So now the question is, okay, I don't want to pray necessarily, I'm tired, I have school in the morning, I have work, but because I love Allah, I'm going to do it. Yes, you should be able to have that mode in your toolbox. You should be able to. But that's still not quantity. That's just being able to submit. That's submission. Okay? My fear is that when we become a people of like this hyper-productive Ramadan, where it becomes all about achieving new benchmarks and new goals and everything that's measured and metric, and we're using like, data analysis and Tableau to like chart our that becomes a problem, right? Because Ramadan is not about you developing personal records. Ramadan is about you finding why you're worshiping Allah in the first place. Ramadan removes all of the external distractions, even the internal distractions, and Allah Ta'ala places you in a position of weakness and says, who are you really? Who are you really? Like when you're well fed and you have your coffee in the morning, and you're like, yeah, I'm patient. Okay, remove your coffee, remove your food. Are you really patient? Who are you really? So what I would say to the person is that sheikh or sheikha might have been saying that don't fall in love with the idea of always being motivated, because you're not always going to be motivated. Motivation is not a prerequisite for prayer or for fasting or for ibadah. But, inshallah, if you do it despite being unmotivated, but you do it out of love and submission, then perhaps you might find motivation, right, in the submission. A little bit different than what I was saying, which is, don't become obsessed with the numbers. Don't become obsessed with the numbers, right? So I think both of them are inshallah, hopefully helpful. Okay?
There's a couple more, inshallah.
Yeah. Good question. How do you get over the communal high and maintain your habits without other people being there? So, it's kind of like if a person goes for Umrah and they go to Mecca, Medina, and they're like doing better than they usually do with Salah. Like they pray 5 prayers in the masjid. Obviously, you have the Haram there, you have Haram Makki, Madani. So, a person comes back from Umrah and they're like, how do I keep praying? Part of it is that you do have to admit that there's something special about Mecca, Medina. So, yes, part of it is that we admit that the communal environment is a huge benefit. Right? Praying and fasting with people is huge. I actually, when I travel in Ramadan, I never break my fast, in part because making up fast is really hard. Right? I feel bad for your sister. Making up fast is really hard because you don't have the communal energy. When we're all fasting together, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? So there is a communal benefit, for sure. What you can do in the month of Ramadan to make sure that you're not relying too much of the communal benefit as a crutch is to make sure you schedule every day a little bit of time just for you. So we go to these Qiyams, we pray Qiyam. Don't go home and jump into your bed and can you sit next to your bed for 3 minutes and just make dua to Allah, just you and Allah? Can you pray 2 rak'ah? Always, when you go home, can you finish with just 2 rak'ah by your bed? If no one else knows, carve out some time that's just individual time. The Ramadan communal high can become a problem when everything we do in Ramadan is community. There's no doubt that we need to make sure that we attach to community. There's benefit, for sure. Those kids are knee-deep in Funyuns right now, right? There's definitely benefit to community. However, you need to make sure that you also carve out some time for yourself. And that's why the first 20 days are open, and the last 10 nights, the Prophet ﷺ did Istiqama, right? So the first 20 days, you're with the community, you're vibing. Last 10 nights, it's okay, let me get some time on myself, right? So last 10 nights is a good chance for you to say, you know what? Even if you're not doing full Istiqama, you're in the masjid for the last 10 nights, you can still come here every night. After Tarawih is over, usually the masajid are open. You can pull up a spot in the corner, have a little bottle of water with you, right? Have your comfortable, maybe bring a blanket or a pillow, lean up against the wall, and just read some Quran. Make some dua. Get up and pray some rak'ah. 20 minutes. Very simple. And then go home. But it was just you. It was just for you. Right? Wallahu a'lam.
I think even Suhurfa is supposed on last night.
Suhurfa, really?
Yeah, so I think they got
that's a crazy, that's props for them. Props to them. They're going to start I'tikaf Fest where they just serve Suhur in the night. Only to more techie though. They have 13 customers. Yeah. They're going to do cheeseburgers dipped in cheese sauce, right? Pistachio lattes.
Hey, one more question, Sean?
Sure. Yeah, we can do it. No, I gotta run to another place. Yeah, we can do it, Sean. Do one more question. Yeah.
So during Ramadan, some people scale back on work or other stuff that they do because they want to put some time into worship, which is understandable. But like coming back to what you said in terms of dawah, sometimes I see that as kind of conveying the message that, oh, now it's Ramadan, I need to do other stuff, or I'm fasting, or all that stuff, so I'm not going to do as much work, or I'm going to scale back on work, or slack off on work. How do you balance these two concepts?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So the question is, if people, for example, scale back a little bit on work during Ramadan, and then that might give the impression to like your team or your colleagues or your employer that Ramadan is like not a month where I can be productive and I can be part of the team. So the example that I was giving was a little bit more about complaining. So people who complain about it, oh, I can't be productive because I'm so hungry and Ramadan is this and that, it's so hard. Kind of taking advantage of people's, not even water? Oh, not even water, You're fine, relax, we're all doing it, right? But I would say that it really depends case by case. I know some people who their jobs, their bosses, the people that they report to are very, very sympathetic about Ramadan, and they understand that, like on a given day of fasting, like after 3:30, it's going to be tough for this person to be like fully locked in. So they might actually allow this person to get some work done early and leave early, right? So if that's your scenario, and if that's what you can make it work, there's no problem, right? I also know some people that generally their managers are a little bit more lax. I know some people that take PTO every Friday in Ramadan to give themselves a short week, 4-day work week, so they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. I know people that take off the odd nights, or they take off, the even nights so that they can sleep in after spending the night. So as long as you're not violating your amana, it's fine. Your amana as an employee is, I'm going to do my job, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to make sure that I fulfill my agreement, right? I'm an employee, I'm supposed to do this. That's the fiqh of it. Shara'an, I'm doing my amana. If you're violating your amana, not showing up on time, cutting out early, skipping meetings, that is a problem. That is a problem. You need to prioritize your agreement, okay? But if you're fulfilling your amana, or your team understands, or you're able to somehow make it up and compensate in some way, working early, etc., after suhoor, then it should be okay. So really the answer is, it depends. It depends on your scenario. The ground rule is, just make sure that your fasting, your Ramadan, does not cause you to oppress or violate your agreements with people. That's it. Okay? As long as you do that, you should be okay. Yes?
Can I?
Sure.
I'm the Slido today.
I see. It
Says, what is your recommendation in responding to anger in Ramadan when it's anger about injustice?
Anger about injustice is wajib. So anger about injustice is actually obligatory. Yeah. So just make dua about what you are frustrated about. If somebody's unjust, and we're not talking about like speculative injustice, we're talking about like absolute injustice. Not like injustice that's like, oh, maybe not. No, like really injustice. It's wajib. You have to be angry about it. At the very minimum, you have to be upset in your heart about it. That's different than the other anger, which is potentially it could be makruh, it could be even haram. Right? So anger about injustice, that's a must. But anger about not getting the last Biscoff cheesecake that I thought, you just missed out. It wasn't ready for you. Right? It's good that we believe in qadar, because whenever something doesn't go your way, you're like, this wasn't meant for me. You could have been reaching for that Biscoff cheesecake. That kid at the door. And he and his friend, they just go grab it. Okay? So, yes, good question, but that's a different type of anger. When I'm using anger, it's a lot more colloquial. It's the anger that's not necessary, it's not required. Okay? Wallahu a'lam. Everybody, may Allah Ta'ala bless you, inshallah, and hopefully everybody has a wonderful Ramadan, and you're able to hopefully close out the month with as much energy and strength as we started it, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Barakallahu feekum. I do have to take leave. I have a flight at 6 in the morning, and I have to make one more stop before I finally get to sleep a little bit tonight. So I will give group salam to everybody right here, inshallah. and then I'll go ahead and take leave. Jazakumullah khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You have some questions for me?